The rain had been relentless all morning, a steady downpour that hammered the roofs of the Coronado weapons maintenance hangar and turned the tarmac into a slick, reflective mirror. Ethan Russo wiped a streak of condensation from his safety glasses and exhaled, fog mingling with the cold, damp air. Another day of what he assumed would be routine maintenance, fixing the tools and weapons that the SEAL teams had pushed to their limits. But this morning felt different. A crate had arrived overnight, unmarked, shipped straight from the armory, addressed only to the Chief Warrant Officer Ridgely. Inside lay a Barrett M107.50 caliber rifle, pristine, almost unnatural in its cleanliness. The kind of weapon that seemed to hum quietly as if aware of its own power. Normally, Ethan would have just logged it and set it aside for testing, but the moment he lifted the rifle, a prickle ran down his spine. The metal was warmer than it should have been. No one had fired this weapon in days, according to the logs. He shrugged off the unease and laid the rifle on the bench, rolling it carefully as he had done 1,000 times before. His hands were large, steady, and precise, trained to handle weapons that could kill a man from half a mile away. He began routine disassembly, removing the bolt carrier group, checking the barrel, inspecting the chamber. Everything seemed normal until he noticed it. Etched into the steel near the feed ramp was a series of scratches, shallow but deliberate. At first he thought it was residue from machining or a careless mark from shipping. But as he studied it, the pattern began to stand out. 3 lines, a short break, then 2 lines. It wasn't random, it was intentional. Someone had left a signature. Ethan's pulse quickened. He was meticulous about detail. He had worked on countless firearms, many of them extremely sophisticated. Nothing he had ever seen bore markings like these. His fingers lingered over the scratches, tracing them slowly. They didn't match any serial number system he knew, and the irregular spacing suggested it wasn't an accident. He leaned back slightly, trying to rationalize it. Perhaps it was a private marking from a previous owner, a veteran SEAL who had left a personal mark. He'd seen quirks like this before, but something about the precision, the deliberate placement of the lines, felt wrong. A sudden slam made him start violently. The hangar doors rattled as a gust of wind pushed through. Ethan's eyes darted toward the noise. Heavy footsteps echoed across the concrete floor, deliberate and authoritative. Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Ridgely stepped into the light, rain dripping from his jacket. His presence was commanding even in the casual motions of entering a hangar. Ethan had known him for 5 years, respected him, feared him slightly. Ridge had the aura of a man who had seen more combat than most people could imagine, and who carried the weight of it in every line of his face. "Russo," Ridge said, his voice low but commanding, cutting through the hum of fluorescent lights. "Tell me you didn't touch that rifle." Ethan froze mid-breath. His hands hovered over the Barrett. "Chief, I just started." Ridge's gaze didn't waver. He moved closer, eyes narrowing as they fell on the scratches. A subtle shift in Ridge's expression made Ethan stop. For the first time, he saw the chief unsettled, almost fearful. "This," Ridge said, pointing with a finger that barely trembled, "is not just any marking." Ethan swallowed hard, heart pounding. "I don't understand." Ridge shook his head, a low, slow motion that carried years of unspoken experience. "It's a signature." Ethan frowned. "A signature from who?" Ridge's jaw tightened. "From someone we thought was dead." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew the names of men who had gone missing or died on classified operations, but this was a name no one spoke aloud unless necessary. Chief Petty Officer Caleb Holt. Ethan's mind struggled to connect the dots. Holt had been the Navy's best long-range sniper, a ghost in the mountains, lethal, precise, someone even the Taliban had learned to fear. He had vanished on a covert operation 8 years ago. The official story was that he was killed in action, the body unrecoverable. But now his signature was on this rifle. "You're kidding me," Ethan whispered. Ridge's face didn't soften. "I wish I were." He leaned in, lowering his voice even further. Holt never left a mark that anyone could see. Only those who knew him intimately would recognize it. And this, his hand hovered over the scratches. This is him. Ethan's stomach nodded, but if Holt's dead... Ridge's eyes flashed with something Ethan had never seen before, a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. He's supposed to be dead, supposed to be, but this means one thing: someone is lying, or worse, he's alive. The air in the hangar seemed heavier, colder. Ethan felt a chill crawl over his arms despite the warmth of the rifles around him. He stared at the weapon in front of him, the scratches suddenly seeming more sinister than before. This was no longer a tool. It was a message. Before he could process more, a noise at the back of the hangar made him jump. A soft tapping, deliberate, almost rhythmic. He froze. Ridge stiffened beside him. "Do you hear that?" Ethan nodded slowly. The tapping repeated. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. His eyes widened as the realization hit him. The pattern on the rifle matched the knocks. Ridge's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, though it remained holstered. "Someone knows you're here," he said, voice low. "Someone who knows the rifle, knows Holt, and knows us." Ethan's heart pounded. Who would? Ridge shook his head, eyes scanning the shadows. "Doesn't matter, they're close." For the first time in years, Ethan Russo felt fear. Not the kind that comes from danger in the field, not the kind that comes from drills or simulations. This was a primal, gut-deep terror. This was real. He glanced at the rifle again. The scratches, faint and unassuming, suddenly seemed alive. A hidden story waiting to be discovered, and above all, a warning. Ridge's hand hovered over the bench. Then he did something Ethan didn't expect. He picked up the Barrett, careful, reverent, almost like he was holding a sleeping beast. His eyes scanned the metal, his lips moving silently as if recalling memories he had buried long ago. Ethan stepped closer. "Chief, what are you seeing?" Ridge's voice was barely audible, almost a whisper. "If this is what I think it is, we're in deeper trouble than I've ever seen." Then the hangar door banged open, throwing a gust of wind that slammed papers and tools to the floor. Ethan and Ridge both spun toward it, weapons ready. Outside, rain obscured everything, but in the shadows a figure was moving, watching, waiting. Ridge's eyes narrowed. "Russ, hold on, this isn't routine maintenance anymore, not by a long shot." Ethan swallowed hard, the chill of dread coiling in his stomach. The man or men outside were connected to Holt, somehow, and now they had him, the rifle, and maybe the secrets he had never been meant to uncover. Ridge took a deep breath. "We need to find Holt, and fast, but first..." His fingers lingered over the rifle again, eyes scanning the scratches. "We need to understand what he left behind." Ethan felt a knot tighten in his chest. Whatever Holt had hidden in this weapon, it was dangerous, and it was personal. Outside, the tapping repeated. 3, pause, 2. Ethan's blood ran cold. Someone had just confirmed they were watching. And in that moment, the quiet routine of a rainy morning exploded into the terrifying possibility. They were not alone. The chief whispered something that would haunt Ethan forever. "This can't be happening." And just like that, the ordinary day of weapon maintenance became the start of something Ethan couldn't yet imagine, but would soon risk everything to survive. The hangar felt smaller now, suffocating in the damp morning haze. Rain had slowed to a drizzle, but outside, the world was still blurred, gray, and unwelcoming. Ethan Russo couldn't shake the sensation that the rifle wasn't just a tool, that somehow, in its cold steel, it carried a story he wasn't ready to hear. Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Ridgely remained motionless by the workbench, eyes locked on the Barrett M107. His normally composed demeanor was cracked with something Ethan had never seen before: uncertainty, fear, and a hint of desperation. The silence stretched, heavy, broken only by the distant echo of raindrops on metal. Finally, Ridge spoke, low, deliberate, almost like each word was being measured against an unseen scale. "Those markings, I know who put them there." Ethan's heart stuttered. He stepped closer. "Who?" Ridge shook his head. "A name we don't speak out loud. Not here, not ever." Ethan frowned. The secrecy made his stomach tighten. In the SEAL world, silence was currency, but the weight in Ridge's tone suggested something far beyond protocol. Ridge's eyes met Ethan's, and the raw intensity of the gaze made him swallow. Chief Petty Officer Caleb Holt. Ethan's pulse jumped, memories of dusty memorial plaques and flickering photos in the mess hall flooding his mind. Holt, the man whose exploits were whispered like legend, whose skill with long-range rifles was unmatched. The man who had vanished in the Hindu Kush during a covert operation 8 years ago, his body never recovered. Dead, at least officially. Ethan's voice caught. "But if he's supposed to be dead," Ridge interrupted, voice tense. "We all believed it. I believed it. But the fact that his signature is on this rifle means someone's lying, or worse, he's alive." Ethan stepped back, his hands trembling. The rifle felt heavier now, as if the very metal was absorbing the tension, poolsing with secrets. Ridge ran a hand over his face, jaw tight. "Holt was the best long-gun operator I ever trained. Quiet, precise, lethal, a ghost in the mountains. He didn't just shoot, he calculated, anticipated. And he never ever left a mark someone could notice. This," he gestured to the scratches, his voice dropping to a whisper, "this is him." Ethan felt his stomach knot. But why would he leave a message now, after all these years? Ridge's gaze sharpened. "Because he didn't leave it, someone else did, and they want us to see it. They want us to know he's alive." The gravity of that statement hit Ethan like a fist. If Holt had survived, if someone had been hiding him, the implications were staggering. The operation in the Hindu Kush had been top secret. Only a handful of people on the planet knew the details. If Holt were alive, and someone knew, it meant the situation had escalated far beyond anything they had trained for. A sudden noise snapped Ethan from his thoughts. A soft metallic tapping, rhythmic and deliberate. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. Ethan froze. That pattern, it's the same as the scratches on the rifle. Ridge's eyes darkened. Exactly. Whoever's out there knows the rifle, Holt and us, and they're not here to negotiate. Ethan felt a chill run through him. For years he had worked with weapons, maintained them, loved them almost. But now, the rifle was no longer just a weapon. It was a warning. A breadcrumb trail leading them into a danger far bigger than anything he had faced. Ridge stepped closer, lowering his voice further. "You need to understand, Russo, Holt wasn't just a sniper. He was a problem solver, a man who could disappear for months without a trace, leaving only his signature in the tools he trusted. If someone is echoing his pattern, they're telling us something, or testing us." Ethan swallowed hard. Testing for what? Ridge shook his head. "I don't know, but Holt's disappearance wasn't an accident, and now, 8 years later, someone has pulled him back into the game." Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him metaphorically. The game Ridge referred to was not training drills, not simulations, not even the high-stakes operations SEALs ran routinely. This was something far darker, covert, personal, lethal. Ridge walked to the rifle again, running a gloved finger over the scratches. Holt had a signature style. Each rifle he worked on had a tiny mark, so subtle you could miss it. Only someone intimately familiar with him could identify it. This is not a coincidence. Ethan's mind raced. So he's alive. Ridge's gaze pierced the dim light of the hangar. If he's alive, someone is using him or using what he left behind. And if Holt's involved, nothing about this is random. Nothing. A sudden clang from the rear of the hangar made them both turn sharply. Shadows stretched and twisted with the dim, flickering lights. Ethan's chest tightened as instinct screamed danger. Ridge's hand moved reflexively to his sidearm, though it remained holstered. "Do you hear that?" Ethan nodded, barely able to speak. Yeah, footsteps. Ridge's eyes narrowed. They know we're here, they've been watching. The realization slammed into Ethan like ice water. This wasn't just about a rifle or a long-dead sniper. This was a direct threat. Someone had orchestrated this entire scenario to make them aware, to draw them in. And the stakes were impossible to gauge. Ridge's voice softened slightly, almost to himself. Holt didn't just disappear. He was extracted, removed from his unit for a reason we never fully understood. And if he's alive, he's been hiding something. Something valuable enough that people are willing to kill to get it back. Ethan's pulse quickened. The idea that a single rifle, a set of scratches, could signal the presence of something so dangerous was almost incomprehensible. But Ridge's tone left no doubt. This was bigger than anything they had encountered. Another noise, a subtle rustle from the shadows, made them both freeze. It was quiet, too precise to be random, too deliberate to ignore. Ridge's voice dropped to a whisper. "Russ, don't make a sound. Whoever's here, they're close." Ethan's heart pounded. He felt sweat prickling at his hairline despite the cold, damp air. His training kicked in, every sense sharpened, every nerve alert. The hangar felt alive, every shadow a potential threat, every metallic echo a signal. Ridge crouched beside him, eyes scanning the darkness. "Listen carefully. Holt's signature is more than scratches on a rifle. It's a warning, a code. And if we don't understand it, we'll be reacting to someone else's moves. That's how people die." Ethan's hands gripped the rifle instinctively, but Ridge shook his head. "No, not yet. We observe, we learn, we anticipate. That's Holt's way, and that's how we survive." For a moment the two men stood in tense silence, listening. The rain outside drummed against the metal roof. The faint tapping returned. 3 paused too. Ethan's throat tightened. He finally whispered, "Who's doing this?" Ridge exhaled slowly, his eyes never leaving the shadows. "Someone who knows Holt, someone who knows us, and someone who isn't going to stop until they get what they came for." The hangar felt impossibly large and impossibly small at the same time. Every tool, every weapon seemed to hum with tension. The Barrett lay on the bench, innocent in appearance but loaded with secrets. Ethan glanced at the scratches again, tracing the 3 lines, the pause, the 2 lines. A code, a signature, a warning, a call to arms. And then Ridge spoke words that made Ethan's stomach sink. "This isn't routine maintenance anymore. Not by a long shot. Prepare yourself, Russo, because we just walked into a nightmare we didn't know existed." Outside the tapping repeated once more, slow and deliberate. 3 paused too. And Ethan knew, with chilling certainty, that someone, Holt or someone else, was watching, waiting, and counting on them to make the next move. The ordinary day of weapon maintenance had ended. The real operation, the one that would test everything Ethan thought he knew about loyalty, danger, and survival, was about to begin. The hangar's shadows stretched and twisted, warped by the dim overhead lights and the intermittent flashes of lightning that cut through the gray drizzle outside. Ethan Russo crouched behind the bench, heart hammering, ears straining to catch every sound. The tapping, 3 paused too, had stopped. For a moment there was only the patter of rain on the metal roof and the soft hum of the ventilation system. But the stillness was heavy, suffocating, as if the darkness itself were watching. Chief Warrant Officer Ridgely moved silently toward the door, his body coiled like a predator ready to strike. Years of combat experience showed in every motion, slow, deliberate, yet brimming with readiness. Ethan's eyes followed him, his pulse a drumbeat in his ears. He trained for ambushes, for firefights, for sudden explosions of violence, but nothing in his experience matched the weight of this moment. Ridge stopped just short of the door, placing a hand on the cold steel. "Listen," he whispered. There it was again, the faintest of movements. Something or someone was approaching. The shadows shifted. The temperature seemed to drop. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had no weapon drawn, all he had was his training and a rifle still disassembled on the bench. Ridge's other hand slid toward his sidearm, slow, measured. "Do not make a sound, I mean it," he hissed. Ethan nodded, fingers curling into fists. Adrenaline surged through him, sharpening every sense. He could hear the subtle creak of the floor, the slight scuff of boots against concrete, and, impossibly, his own heartbeat pounding in rhythm with the faint echoes of the approaching figure. The door handle rattled. Ethan froze, Ridge's eyes narrowed. "Hold your position." The door opened just a crack. A figure appeared in the dim light outside, rain streaking down its face. Ethan squinted, but the shadows obscured most of the features. For a fleeting moment, he thought it might be one of the SEAL teams conducting routine training. But there was something off, something familiar yet alien. Ridge's breath caught in his throat. Ethan saw it, the unmistakable silhouette of a man who should have been dead. Caleb Holt. The name hung in the air, unspoken but impossible to ignore. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, soaked from the rain, and moving with the controlled precision of someone who had survived wars that Ethan couldn't even imagine. His eyes, once calm and calculating, were now bloodshot, haunted, constantly scanning the surroundings, expecting ambush at any second. Holt pushed past Ridge, moving into the hangar with the urgency of a predator on the hunt. "No time," he gasped, voice ragged. "They're coming." Ethan stepped forward instinctively. "Who's coming?" Holt's gaze landed on the Barrett M107 lying on the bench. His eyes widened briefly, recognition flashing. He reached out, shaking slightly, as if the rifle itself was a lifeline. "They put something inside it, something I stole, something that will get all of us killed if you don't finish what I started." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Finish what?" he asked, but Holt didn't answer. Instead, Holt crouched over the rifle, scanning every inch, his fingers moving with a precise rhythm over the barrel and receiver. Ridge stepped beside Ethan, eyes never leaving the shadows beyond the hangar doors. "Russo," Ridge whispered, voice tight, "stay close. Do not separate." Ethan nodded, though his body was tense, ready to move at a moment's notice. His mind raced. What had Holt stolen? What could possibly be hidden inside a rifle that made the SEAL chief look terrified? Another sound, the subtle scuff of boots on wet concrete, echoed from the far end of the hangar. Holt's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. He moved like a shadow, swift and silent, toward the source. Ridge signaled Ethan to stay put. Ethan gritted his teeth, frustration and fear coiling together. He couldn't just watch. But Ridge was right. If they moved recklessly, they'd be sitting ducks. The intruder emerged from the shadows, a figure clad in black, gloved hands, face obscured by a hood and mask. Ethan felt his pulse spike. The man's movements were deliberate, practiced. He didn't stumble, didn't hesitate. Holt froze. The intruder's gaze met his through the mask. Recognition, or maybe memory, flickered in Holt's eyes. A flash of rage, then calculation. The intruder lunged toward the Barrett's lower receiver, snatching it from the bench with terrifying speed. Holt reacted instantly, launching himself forward, but the figure was already retreating toward the hangar exit. Ethan's mind screamed, "Chief, behind you!" Ridge reacted like lightning, twisting, weapon raised, fingers tightening on the trigger. The first shot cracked, suppressed but deadly. The intruder flinched, dropping the lower receiver, but not before diving into the shadows and vanishing into the night. Holt scrambled after the thief, limping slightly from an old injury, rage fueling every movement. Ridge barked an order at Ethan, "Stay here." But Ethan's instincts overruled him. "I'm not staying," he shouted. Ridge hesitated, a microsecond of conflict flashing in his eyes. Then he nodded. "Fine, stay behind cover, move when I tell you." The three of them moved out of the hangar into the rain-slicked tarmac. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the fleeing figure as he sprinted toward the old decommissioned hangars at the far end of the base. Holt gave chase, limping but relentless. Ethan grabbed the nearest utility vehicle, a small gator, and jumped in. The engine roared to life as Ridge ran alongside, hand on his weapon. "Faster!" he shouted. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel, tires screeching on wet concrete. The wind and rain lashed at him, mixing with the thunder to create a chaotic symphony of danger. The fleeing figure darted behind crates and abandoned vehicles, disappearing briefly, only to reappear farther ahead. Holt reached the hangar first. He skidded to a stop, chest heaving, only to be met by a second figure, much larger, menacing, moving with lethal intent. In one brutal motion, the man struck Holt, sending him sprawling across the wet concrete. Ethan's stomach dropped. The sight of Holt, legendary, untouchable Holt, crumpled and vulnerable, blood streaking his face, filled him with rage and fear. He swerved the gator closer, narrowly avoiding crates and debris. Ridge caught up, firing 2 precise shots that forced the larger attacker to retreat, but Holt had already been dragged into the shadows of the hangar. The doors slammed shut behind them, metal clanging like the tolling of a bell. Ethan skidded to a stop, adrenaline still coursing. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead and he struggled to breathe. "They took him," he said, voice barely audible over the storm. Ridge's eyes were hard, his jaw set. Inside that hangar, Russo something, waiting, and it's not going to be friendly. Ethan's hands shook as he swallowed hard, looking toward the imposing structure. The hangar doors were reinforced steel, shadows crawling across them, hiding whatever horrors awaited. He realized with a sinking feeling that this was no ordinary rescue mission. Holt's capture wasn't random. Whoever had taken him knew exactly how to strike, how to manipulate fear, and how to control the battlefield without ever revealing themselves. And now, Ridge, Ethan, and Holt, if he survived, were all trapped in a deadly game with stakes none of them fully understood. Lightning flashed again, revealing the hangar in stark relief. The shadows seemed almost alive, stretching and writhing like tendrils reaching for them. The rain pattered, relentless, masking every sound outside their immediate area, making it impossible to know how many attackers waited, how many eyes watched, or how many had already infiltrated the base. Ridge turned to Ethan, voice low but firm. "Russ, whatever Holt was carrying, whatever he stole, it's inside that rifle. And it's not just about bullets, it's about control, about power. And right now, it's the only thing that can keep us alive." Ethan's stomach churned. He had maintained rifles, repaired them, studied every weapon in the SEAL inventory, but never had he felt like a simple tool could hold the key to life and death. And now, it wasn't just theory. He glanced at the disassembled Barrett on the workbench, the scratches etched into the steel, the small, almost imperceptible imperfections that Holt had left behind as a signature. That rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was a map, a message, a warning, and perhaps the only way to find Holt before it was too late. The hangar loomed ahead, silent, foreboding, and full of unseen threats. Holt's bloodied form might be inside. The attackers were patient, disciplined, and lethal. And Ethan understood in that instant that every decision from this moment on would be a test of instinct, training, and courage. One wrong move, and none of them would walk out alive. Then from deep within the hangar, a sound echoed. A metallic clang like the striking of a hammer on steel, followed by a low, menacing laugh. Ethan's blood ran cold. Ridge's expression darkened. Holt's voice, weak but unmistakable, came from the shadows. "Russ, you have to finish what I started." Before Ethan could respond, the heavy steel doors at the far end of the hangar slammed shut with a deafening clang, locking them inside. And in that instant, he realized the nightmare had only just begun. The sudden slam of the hangar doors echoed like a gunshot in the rain-slicked air. Inside, the shadows seemed to stretch farther, devouring what little light flickered from the overhead bulbs. Ethan Russo felt his pulse spike as adrenaline surged through his veins. Every muscle was coiled, ready to react. The storm outside and the chaos within made the hangar a labyrinth of threat. Every crate, every metal beam a potential hiding place for the unseen. Ridge crouched beside Ethan, his breath steady, eyes scanning the darkness. Years of combat had honed his instincts, but even he wasn't immune to the tension. "Russo," he whispered, voice low and gravelly, "we need to move. Stay close, don't let them separate us." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. His hands clutched the side of the utility vehicle they had abandoned outside, now useless in the dark. The thought of moving through the shadows without sight made his stomach churn, but the alternative, staying still, was worse. Before they could take another step, the lights flickered violently and died, plunging the hangar into complete darkness. The only illumination came from intermittent lightning flashes and the soft drizzle of rain slipping through a partially open skylight. The sudden blackout made everything feel more dangerous, more alive. Every shadow could be a weapon, every whisper a threat. "They've cut the power," Ridge muttered, eyes narrowing. "They're controlling this." Ethan's mouth went dry. "But why?" "Fear," Ridge replied without hesitation. "Control, confusion. They want to disorient us, make us vulnerable, and it's working." Holt's weak voice called from somewhere ahead, almost swallowed by the darkness. "Russo, behind the crates, hurry." Ethan moved instinctively, guided by sound, keeping his head low. Ridge led the way, cig in hand, moving like a shadow among shadows. Holt's figure appeared briefly as lightning flashed, hunched and limping but still determined. His presence was a beacon of grim hope amidst the encroaching terror. Ridge stopped suddenly, motioning Ethan to halt. "Listen," he whispered. From somewhere deeper in the hangar came the sound of boots, soft, precise, deliberate. Multiple sets. They were moving with coordination, spacing themselves perfectly, not making a sound except for the faintest scuff of soles against wet concrete. "Not Navy," Holt said between shallow breaths, voice tight. "Their movement, it's wrong, too precise." Ridge exhaled slowly. "Contractors." "No," Holt corrected. "Worse, ex-military, trained to hunt, trained to kill quietly." Ethan's stomach churned. Every survival instinct in him screamed danger. He had trained for firefights, for ambushes, for life-or-death scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for this, being hunted inside your own base by unseen enemies. Ridge's hand hovered over his cig. "They're after the rifle," he muttered, "or what's hidden inside it." Ethan remembered Holt's earlier words. "Something I stole from them. Something that's going to get all of us killed if you don't finish what I started." Whatever it was, the stakes had just escalated beyond comprehension. A faint click echoed in the darkness, then another. Ethan's eyes darted in the shadows, trying to locate the source. Before he could react, a sudden burst of suppressed fire stitched across the metal crates near them, shattering tools and sending splinters of wood flying. Sparks erupted from the impact, momentarily illuminating the chaos. Holt rolled forward, yanking the Barrett lower receiver from a fallen crate. "Russo, get down." Ethan dropped to the floor, heart racing. Metal clanged around him as Ridge fired back, returning precise shots into the darkness. The attackers moved with terrifying efficiency, disappearing as quickly as they struck. The hangar was a cage, every shadow a potential threat, every sound amplified by fear and tension. "Follow me," Ridge shouted, motioning toward a narrow corridor leading toward the back of the hangar. "We get Holt out of sight and figure this out." Ethan followed, low and fast, adrenaline pushing him past fear. Holt limped but moved with surprising speed, the rifle clutched tightly to his chest. Every second stretched like hours. The attackers could be anywhere, above, below, behind. The blackout made their advantage absolute. They ducked behind a stack of crates, breathing hard. Ridge scanned the area, eyes narrowed. "We need a plan. They've got night vision. We're blind." Ethan's mind raced. The Barrett, Holt, the microcapsule, whatever was hidden inside could change everything. But the attackers were closer now, moving in coordinated patterns, herding them like prey. Holt's voice was strained but steady. The lower receiver, it's the key. It's not the bullets, it's what they put inside. What is it? Ethan asked. Holt shook his head. I don't know all of it yet, but if they get it, if they take it, there's no going back. Suddenly, a beam of flashlight cut through the darkness, bouncing off the wet concrete. The attackers had found them. One figure emerged, mask glinting in the light, weapon raised. Another followed. More appeared behind crates, silent but deadly. Ridge raised his cig. Russo, move. Ethan sprinted, sliding behind cover as shots ripped through the air. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off metal crates. Holt fired with precision, knocking the attackers back, but the numbers were overwhelming. Every flash of lightning revealed more enemies closing in. Through the back, Ridge shouted. There's a service exit. Ethan and Holt followed, weaving through crates, jumping over debris, bullets whizzing past them. The rain outside had turned the tarmac into a mirror of chaos, reflecting flashes of light from the hangar and the sudden, erratic lightning. They reached the service exit, a narrow door at the far end of the hangar. Ridge slammed it open and they spilled outside, the cold rain drenching them instantly. Holt gasped, the pain in his leg slowing his steps, but he moved forward, rifle in hand. The storm masked their movement. Ethan could hear the attackers shouting, their voices distorted by the storm, but they couldn't see well in the downpour. Holt's knowledge of terrain gave them an edge. They ducked behind containers, moving toward an abandoned maintenance shed at the edge of the tarmac. Ethan glanced back. The hangar loomed like a fortress, and inside, shadows still moved, waiting. Every second they delayed, the attackers would adapt. Ridge finally exhaled, lowering his weapon for a fraction of a second. We're not out yet, he muttered, but we have a chance to regroup. Holt collapsed slightly against a crate, breathing heavily. They're not just after me, they want what's in the rifle, the capsule. They've known it was hidden all along, and now they're closing in. Ethan's hands shook. He had never felt such a combination of fear, adrenaline, and raw purpose. Every training exercise, every rifle he had maintained, every calculated move in the field, it all led to this moment. Ridge motioned toward the maintenance shed. Inside, now. They sprinted through the pouring rain, thunder rattling the air above. As they reached the shed, Ethan glanced back one last time at the hangar. The storm reflected the chaos, the danger, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Inside the shed, Holt slumped against a wall, exhausted but alert. Ridge checked the perimeter, weapon ready. Ethan finally allowed himself to breathe, but only slightly. They were alive for now, but the reality was clear. The attackers were relentless, organized, and one step ahead. Holt's voice broke the tension, quiet but intense. We have to finish what I started, or none of us walk out alive. A sudden metallic clang sounded outside the shed. A signal, a warning, or perhaps the arrival of more enemies. Ethan's heart stopped. Ridge's face hardened. Holt's eyes widened with recognition and dread. And in that instant, the three of them realized. The nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. The rain had not eased. It pounded down on the abandoned maintenance shed, turning the tarmac into a slick, reflective battlefield. Every flash of lightning revealed fleeting glimpses of movement, shadows of the enemy hunters creeping closer. Ethan Russo's lungs burned as he ran alongside Holt and Ridge, boots sliding across puddles. Each step felt like a gamble. One slip could be fatal. One miscalculation could mean death. Holt leaned heavily on his good leg, dragging the rifle and his burden with him. They've been tracking this for months, he gasped. They knew it was hidden. They knew someone would come after it. Ethan's mind raced. But how did they know? Holt's eyes flickered toward the hangar, rage and fear mixing in the shadows of his face. It doesn't matter how, only that they did. And now, we have to stay alive long enough to finish what I started. Ridge's voice cut through the storm, sharp and commanding. Eyes up, left flank. Through the lightning flash, Ethan saw them. Three figures advancing at a terrifying pace, glinting weapons in hand, moving with military precision. Not just attackers, they were hunters, predators in human form, trained to strike and vanish without warning. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon, adrenaline sharpening his reflexes. "We can't outrun them in the rain," he shouted. "We don't need to outrun them," Ridge barked. "We need to outsmart them." Holt stumbled slightly, clutching the rifle closer. His face twisted with pain but also determination. "Through the containers," he gasped. "We can use the storage yard as cover. They won't see us coming." Ethan followed Holt's lead, sprinting toward the massive stacks of shipping containers at the far edge of the tarmac. The rain turned their movements into a blur of gray and black, punctuated by flashes of lightning. Every splash of water from their boots sounded like a warning signal, a marker for the enemy to track them. The attackers were closing in, moving with terrifying synchronization. Ethan could hear the faint click of weapons being readied, feel the tension in the air, taste the fear in every pulse. The storm masked some sound but magnified others: the hum of distant generators, the scrape of metal against metal, the hiss of water cascading off rooftops. Ridge shouted, "Split up, move to the second row of containers." Ethan hesitated, looking at Holt's limping form, but Holt's eyes locked with his, fierce and unwavering. "Move now." They darted behind the containers, shadows folding around them like a protective cloak. The attackers followed, but Holt had set traps, tripwires, displaced crates, subtle obstacles that forced the hunters to slow, hesitate, adapt. Each lightning flash revealed their fleeting silhouettes, caught momentarily before disappearing again. Ethan's chest burned from running. His muscles screamed, but his mind sharpened. Each heartbeat was a countdown, every breath a weapon. He remembered Holt's words about what was hidden in the rifle, something that could get all of them killed. And now, every move he made, every choice, could mean the difference between life and death. A sudden whistle cut through the storm, shrill and deliberate. Ethan froze. Holt's eyes narrowed. "They're coordinating. They're not just hunting us, they're testing us, shaping the battlefield." One of the attackers emerged from the shadows ahead, weapon raised, clearly attempting to intercept Holt. Without thinking, Ethan leveled his sidearm, squeezed the trigger, and a deafened crack echoed through the storm. The attacker flinched and dove behind a container. Holt moved like a predator, striking with precision, disarming the intruder without pause. His movements were fluid despite the pain in his leg, a lethal dance honed over years of survival in the deadliest environments on Earth. Ridge called from above, voice steady, calm. "Ethan, cover left. Holt, I need you on the right." The three of them moved in perfect, dangerous synchronicity. Rain soaked their clothes, plastered hair to their faces, but their focus was absolute. The enemy underestimated them. They didn't account for experience, instinct, and the unspoken coordination that comes from years of elite training. A sudden metallic clang from above made Ethan glance up. A second-floor walkway on the hangar had shifted. Another attacker, elevated, attempting an ambush. Ethan raised his weapon, fired twice, suppressing the figure, sending them tumbling to the floor. Lightning illuminated the motion, a brutal ballet of survival in the rain. Holt's voice cut through the storm, strained but commanding. "The rifle, move. They know we have it, they're coming for the capsule inside." Ethan's blood ran cold. Whatever was inside the Barrett wasn't ordinary. It wasn't ammunition. Holt had said it could kill them all if mishandled. And now the enemy was closing in, their intent lethal and singular. Ridge barked an order. "Containers on your left, will funnel them into the open yard. Use the storm, they won't see us coming." They dove behind stacked crates, moving silently. The attackers tried to anticipate their movements, but Holt's knowledge of terrain, combined with Ridge's tactical mind, gave them the edge. Rain plastered their clothing, masks and hoods hiding their faces, turning the world into a surreal gray battlefield. Holt stumbled, pain flashing across his face. Ethan grabbed him, steadying him. "You okay?" he shouted over the storm. Holt shook his head, gritting his teeth. "Never been better, just keep moving." They rounded a corner and the tarmac opened up into a wide, flat expanse, perfect for ambush, perfect for snipers. Ethan's eyes scanned desperately. In the distance, he could see movement, shadows shifting in perfect formation, poised to strike. "They're setting up a kill zone," Ethan shouted. Ridge's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll force them to play our game, keep Holt between us, move fast, don't stop." They sprinted across the wet tarmac, ducking behind scattered crates and equipment. Lightning illuminated the attackers' positions momentarily, revealing dozens of coordinated figures converging on them from multiple directions. Ethan realized with a sinking feeling that they were surrounded, almost, but Holt's strategy was cunning. Each container, each crate, each shadow was being used to mislead, to divide the enemy's attention. Holt reached the edge of the tarmac, dragging Ethan toward an old fuel depot, a maze of rusted pipes, abandoned barrels, and maintenance equipment. The attackers followed, relentless, coordinated, deadly. "Inside the depot now," Holt shouted. They ducked inside just as a flash of lightning revealed a dozen attackers converging at the entrance. Inside, the depot was a cavernous mess of shadows and old machinery. Holt collapsed against a wall, breath ragged. Ethan could see the pain etched into every line of his body, the strain in every movement. Ridge scanned the depot, weapon raised. "We're not safe yet. They'll come for us. They always come for what they want." Ethan swallowed hard. "And the rifle?" Holt's eyes glinted, fierce and determined. "It's safe for now, but they'll track it, and if they find it," he shook his head, "we won't get another chance." A sudden metallic scrape echoed from the shadows. Ethan and Ridge spun toward it, weapons raised. A figure emerged, masked, silent, precise. Another followed, and another. Holt's eyes widened. "They're not just hunting, they're testing us, trying to see what we'll do next." Ridge gritted his teeth. "Then we show them." Ethan raised his sidearm, heart pounding, adrenaline burning every nerve. The first firefight inside the depot was about to erupt, and there would be no turning back. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the chaos inside. Rain hissed as it hit exposed metal. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside, and Ethan knew with bone-deep certainty that the next minutes would determine who lived and who died. And above all, one truth rang louder than the thunder. The Barrett, Holt, and the capsule it carried were the center of a deadly game, and they were already deep in it. The depot was a maze of shadows, rusted machinery, stacked barrels, and jagged beams. Rain leaked through the broken roof, splashing across the concrete floor and amplifying the echo of every movement. Ethan Russo crouched behind a corroded oil drum, heart hammering in his chest, gripping his sidearm as the shadows around him seemed to twist and pulse with life. Chief Warrant Officer Ridgely moved silently beside him, eyes sharp, weapon raised. Years of combat had honed his senses to a razor edge, but even he seemed tense, almost rigid with anticipation. Every creak, every metallic scrape, every drop of rain hitting the depot roof was amplified into potential threat. Holt's figure was a few feet ahead, hunched against a wall, breathing raggedly, but every movement radiated deadly precision. His eyes darted across the room, calculating, anticipating. The Barrett M107, the weapon they had been protecting at all costs, rested in his hands, its scratches glinting under the intermittent lightning. "They're inside," Holt whispered, voice low but firm. "We don't have much time. And they're not just after the rifle, they're after me." Ethan's stomach twisted. He had expected attackers, but the revelation that Holt himself was a primary target made the danger feel more personal, more lethal. "Why you?" he asked, teeth clenched against the tension. Holt shook his head, voice hoarse. "I've done things that certain people never forgave. They wanted the rifle, yes, but they want me alive, or they want what I know." Ridge didn't comment. He crouched behind a stack of crates, scanning for the first sign of movement. "We need to clear this place," he said finally, voice low. "And we need to do it without getting picked off one by one." A metallic scrape echoed from the far end of the depot. A figure emerged from the shadows, mask glinting under the intermittent lightning. It moved with lethal precision, weapon raised. Another followed immediately, their movements synchronized, professional, almost robotic in their efficiency. Holt raised the Barrett, firing with deadly accuracy. The first attacker was pushed back, forced to dive for cover behind a rusted control panel. Sparks flew where rounds struck metal, illuminating the storm of danger around them. Ethan's hands shook with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. He raised his sidearm, squeezing off precise shots at a second attacker. The bullets cracked through the air, ricocheting off metal and concrete. The depot became a cacophony of movement, sound, and chaos, flashes of lightning cutting through the darkness, highlighting fleeting silhouettes in motion. Ridge's voice was calm, precise, cutting through the chaos. Russo, left flank. Holt, suppressing fire, moved to the center. They darted from cover to cover, the rain outside masking some sounds but amplifying others. Holt's knowledge of the depot gave them an edge. He knew where the shadows could be manipulated, where the attackers could be funneled. Suddenly, a trap sprung. A small rigged explosive beneath a stack of barrels detonated, sending a thunderous boom through the depot. Ethan was thrown backward, crashing against a metal beam. Sparks danced across the wet floor as smoke filled the air, burning the senses. Ridge gritted his teeth. "They've been planning this. They know our patterns." Holt pushed forward despite the pain in his leg, firing the Barrett with precision. Each shot was deliberate, calculated, and deadly. The attackers staggered, retreating behind cover, regrouping with frightening efficiency. Ethan scrambled to his feet, adrenaline surging. "There are too many of them," he shouted over the roar of the storm and gunfire. "They underestimated us," Holt corrected, his voice sharp and unwavering. "We're not predictable, not if we stay alive." Lightning flashed, illuminating the room for an instant. Ethan could see the attackers clearly now, masked, disciplined, coordinated. They were ex-military operatives, elite, trained to kill silently and efficiently. Holt's earlier warnings had been accurate. One attacker broke from cover, charging directly at Holt. In a blur, Holt sidestepped, using his weight to push the attacker into a stack of crates. Ethan fired, hitting another attacker squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling. Ridge barked an order. "Cover Holt, don't let them get to the rifle." Ethan moved to intercept, sliding behind crates to protect Holt as the enemy regrouped. Each second was a battle of wits, reflexes, and survival instincts. The depot had become a chessboard of death, every move calculated, every shot critical. Then Holt froze, eyes narrowing on the shadows. "Wait." Ethan followed his gaze. In the far corner of the depot, obscured by barrels and machinery, a figure stood silently, observing. Something about the stance, the way the attacker held themselves, sent a chill down Ethan's spine. "They know the capsule is inside," Holt whispered. "And that's what they really want. Not the rifle, it's what's inside it." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What's inside?" Holt shook his head. "I can't say yet, but if they get it, no one survives." Ridge's voice cut through the tension. "We need to move. Now, they're going to try something drastic." Before Ethan could respond, the far corner erupted. A synchronized attack from 3 directions. The attackers moved with terrifying precision, weapons aimed, suppressing fire, cutting off any escape. Holt rolled to the side, barely avoiding a burst of bullets. Sparks flew where metal scraped metal. Ethan dove for cover behind a stack of barrels, heart hammering. Ridge fired systematically, taking down one attacker after another, but the numbers were overwhelming. Holt called out, "To the catwalk, move." They scrambled toward a narrow metal staircase leading to a catwalk above the depot floor. Rain had made the steps slick, every movement a perilous calculation. Bullets ricocheted around them, striking metal and concrete with deafening impact. Ethan's hands burned from gripping the sidearm, muscles screaming. He glanced at Holt, whose movements were precise despite the pain, determined despite exhaustion. Ridge moved like a shadow beside them, clearing the path with deadly efficiency. They reached the catwalk, breath ragged, bodies trembling. From this vantage point, they could see the full scope of the depot, dozens of attackers advancing, systematically sweeping the floor, coordinating like a single lethal organism. Holt's voice cut through the storm. "They're not just after us. They want to control the rifle, control the capsule. They'll stop at nothing." Ethan swallowed hard, gripping the railing. "We can't hold them off forever." Ridge's eyes hardened. "We don't need to. We need to make them overcommit, make them underestimate us. Then we take the initiative." Lightning illuminated Holt's face, twisted with pain and determination. "Then we finish this before they finish us." From below, the attackers moved in, coordinated, relentless, their intent clear. Holt raised the Barrett, taking aim. Ridge and Ethan readied themselves, hearts pounding. Every second counted, every shot mattered. And then from deep within the shadows, a voice rang out, calm and chilling. "Holt, did you really think you could hide forever?" Ethan froze. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. Ridge's jaw tightened. Holt's eyes widened, recognition and horror flashing across his face. The real mastermind had arrived. And in that instant, the fight for the Barrett and the deadly secret it contained was about to reach a terrifying climax. The metallic echo of the depot doors slammed somewhere in the storm outside, but it was the voice from the shadows that froze Ethan Russell in his tracks. Calm, precise, chilling. It was a voice that had haunted nightmares and whispered rumors in elite circles for years. "Holt, did you really think you could hide forever?" Holt's eyes widened, the fire of recognition and shock blending with fury. His grip tightened on the Barrett M107, knuckles white. "You," he hissed, voice trembling with controlled anger. "I should have known it would be you." From the shadows, the figure stepped forward, the intermittent lightning illuminating a tall, lean frame. Mask discarded, revealing a scarred but familiar face. Colonel Marcus Kane, ex-Special Operations Officer, Holt's former mentor turned rogue, and now the architect of the hunt. His eyes glinted with cold calculation. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard the stories. The man who had trained Holt personally, teaching him every secret of long-range marksmanship, every silent move in hostile territory. And now, Kane stood before them, weapon-trained, aura of lethal authority radiating off him like heat. "Marcus Kane," Ridge muttered under his breath, jaw tight. "I thought you were MIA, dead like Holt's other team." Kane's lips curved into a faint, cruel smile. "Dead? Hardly. I've been watching, waiting, and now the time is right. Holt, you've carried the secret too long. The capsule hidden in that rifle belongs to me." Ethan felt his stomach drop. The rifle, the scratches, Holt's desperate protection was more than a weapon. It was a container, a key, a prize worth killing for. And now, the man who had trained Holt, who had known him better than anyone, was standing in the shadows as the final threat. Holt's face hardened, pain and determination mixing. You went rogue, you betrayed us. And now you've brought all of this," he gestured to the depot, "to make me give it up. Never." Kane chuckled softly, a sound like metal grinding. "You think this is about betrayal, it's about vision, Holt. You had no idea what you were protecting. You hid it thinking it was justice. But in reality," his gaze flicked to Ethan and Ridge, "it's power. The kind that shifts balances, the kind that people die for." Ethan's hands shook, tightening around his sidearm. Power, capsule, secret. The words blended into a storm in his mind. Every move, every risk, every firefight, it all revolved around something they hadn't fully understood. Ridge's voice cut through the tension, low and controlled. "Enough talk, this ends tonight." Kane's eyes flickered with amusement. Ends tonight. Oh, you've only just begun, Ridgely. And Russo, you're in over your head, but don't worry, you'll understand soon enough. The calm before the storm shattered. Kane's men, elite XSOF operatives, moved simultaneously, weapons raised, converging on Holt, Ridge, and Ethan. The depot erupted into chaos, bullets ricocheting off metal, sparks flying, the storm outside amplifying every sound into a cacophony of survival. Holt fired with brutal precision, each shot purposeful, every movement calculated. Ethan, cover me while I extract the capsule. Ethan obeyed instinctively, firing at shadows, forcing attackers to duck and retreat, buying precious seconds. Ridge moved like a shadow beside him, taking down assailants with methodical efficiency. Every second was a battle, every breath a gamble. Kane watched, calculating, waiting for Holt to make a mistake. His movements were deliberate, slow, almost theatrical, but lethal. He knew Holt's style, Holt's instincts, Holt's weaknesses. He had trained him, and now he was exploiting every lesson. Holt's leg throbbed with pain, blood mixing with rainwater dripping from the depot roof. Yet he moved with deadly grace, securing the rifle and protecting the capsule hidden inside. "We can't let them take it," he growled through gritted teeth. Ethan ducked behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the air. "Tell me what's inside. Tell me what's so important." Holt's eyes flicked to him, sharp and intense. "A device," he whispered, voice urgent. "A microcapsule capable of bypassing every secure system known to man. Military satellites, encrypted comms, missile guidance, you name it. If Kane controls this, he can manipulate any battlefield, any nation with a push of a button." Ethan's jaw dropped. The storm outside seemed to intensify, thunder punctuating the gravity of the revelation. That's insane." "It's real," Holt said, face grim, "and he won't hesitate to use it." Ridge barked a command. "Russo, flank left. Holt, keep moving. Kane's men can't know we're focused on him." They moved in a deadly rhythm. Holt dragged the rifle capsule safely hidden, weaving through barrels and machinery. Ethan fired at approaching enemies, keeping them suppressed, buying Holt and Ridge crucial seconds. Sparks and splinters flew from ricochets, adding to the chaos. Kane finally moved, stepping out of cover with his weapon raised. "Holt," he said, voice calm but lethal, "you've always been clever, but clever isn't enough tonight. Give me the capsule." Holt's reply was sharp, unwavering. "Over my dead body." Lightning flashed, illuminating Holt's determined face and Kane's cold, calculating stare. The standoff was tense, almost cinematic, the teacher facing the student, the hunter facing the hunted. Kane advanced, measured, each step deliberate. "Then you leave me no choice." The firefight intensified. Ethan and Ridge flanked Kane's men, taking them down methodically, but Kane's focus remained unshakable. Holt rolled behind cover, raising the Barrett for a precision shot. "Ethan," Holt shouted. "The ladder, we can get above them, gain the advantage." Ethan followed, climbing the rusted catwalk with Holt and Ridge. From this elevated position, they could see the depot in its entirety, the chaos, the attackers, the storm, and for the first time they had a tactical advantage. Holt aimed the Barrett, each breath steady despite pain and fatigue. "One shot, one chance," he muttered. The rifle discharged, the suppressed round hitting its target with surgical precision, taking down one of Kane's lieutenants. Ridge signaled Ethan, "Now take the shot at the nearest flank." Ethan obeyed, firing with precision, his weapon shaking in his hands. One by one, Kane's men fell or retreated, disoriented by the sudden, calculated counterattack. Kane's eyes narrowed, recognizing the shift in momentum. "So this is how it ends," he hissed, voice low and dangerous. "Do you think a few bullets can stop me?" Holt raised the Barrett again, voice firm. "No, but teamwork, instinct, and resolve can, and you underestimated us." Ethan's mind raced, adrenaline and clarity merging. Kane may have been a mentor, a genius, and a deadly force, but Holt, Ridge, and he had something Kane lacked: unity, improvisation, and a refusal to surrender. The standoff reached its crescendo as Holt and Kane faced off across the depot floor. Rainwater sloshed beneath their feet. Lightning illuminated the deadly dance, highlighting shadows, reflections, and fleeting movements. Kane took a step, weapon raised, and in that moment Holt's eyes glinted with determination. "This ends now," he said. And for a heartbeat, time seemed suspended. The storm outside echoing the storm inside, the fate of the capsule, the rifle, and all of them balanced on the edge of a single shot. Lightning cracked, thunder roared, and the first decisive move of the final confrontation was made. The depot was a storm of chaos. Rain drummed relentlessly on the metal roof, bouncing off rusted machinery and creating a cacophony that masked the deadly tension within. Ethan Russo crouched behind a corroded oil drum, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the figure below. Colonel Marcus Kane, ex-Special Ops, rogue strategist, and Holt's former mentor. Lightning illuminated Kane's cold, calculating face. The storm outside mirrored the tempest inside the depot. Every second stretched, every heartbeat a countdown. The capsule, the rifle, the lives of everyone in the depot, all balanced on the edge of a knife. Holt, limping but resolute, clutched the Barrett M107, the microcapsule hidden within its lower receiver like a ticking bomb of unimaginable consequence. His eyes, fierce with determination, met Kane across the open expanse. "It ends tonight, Marcus," Holt said, voice steady despite pain. Kane's lips curved into a faint, cruel smile. "Ends tonight? No, Holt. Tonight begins the real game, one that you've been too naive to understand until now." Ridge's eyes flicked across the room, analyzing positions, calculating movement. "Russo," he said sharply, "cover the left flank. Holt, gain the center. I'll take the right. Keep the capsule safe, don't let Kane get it." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of the moment pressed down on him like a physical force. Every ounce of training, every drill he had ever endured, every moment of preparation led to this instant. One wrong move, one misfire, and they would all die, or worse, the capsule would fall into Kane's hands. From the shadows, Kane's men advanced. Elite operatives, XSOF, deadly and precise. They moved like predators in a choreographed dance of death, flanking Holt and the others, aiming to overwhelm them with sheer numbers and strategy. Holt's leg throbbed painfully with each step, but he moved with lethal precision, each shot from the Barrett suppressing a threat, forcing the attackers to duck behind crates and machinery. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted, illuminating the depot in fractured flashes of white and yellow. Ethan fired systematically, suppressing approaching enemies, his mind a tightrope of focus and fear. Every shot counted. Every second mattered. He caught glimpses of Kane moving among the chaos, watching, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then Kane acted. He darted forward, moving with the agility of a predator, weapon raised, targeting Holt with surgical precision. Holt rolled behind a crate just as bullets tore through the air around him. "Russo now," Holt shouted. Ethan pivoted, taking the shot. His sidearm cracked through the storm of fire, hitting one of Kane's lieutenants in the chest. The man crumpled, but Kane remained, advancing with unnerving calm. Ridge barked orders, his voice cutting through the storm. "Move! Holt, follow me to the catwalk. Russo, cover the rear." They scrambled toward the catwalk, climbing rusted steps slick with rain and sweat. From above, they could see the depot in its entirety. Chaos, shadows, lightning illuminating fleeting movements. The attackers had spread out, attempting to box them in, but Holt, Ridge, and Ethan now had the high ground. Holt gritted his teeth, holding the Barrett steady. "The capsule," he muttered. "We can't let him get it. It's the only leverage he has over the world. If he controls it, every nation is vulnerable." Ethan's eyes widened. "That's insane. He could start wars." Holt's face darkened. Exactly, and that's why it ends tonight. Kane's voice echoed up from the depot floor, calm, precise, menacing. You think you can stop me, Holt? I taught you everything. You know your mistakes as well as I do. One wrong move and all of this, he gestured to the storm, the depot, the rifle, falls into my hands. Holt's eyes narrowed. I know my mistakes, but you underestimate what we've learned together. A flash of lightning revealed Kane stepping out into the open, weapon raised. Holt aimed the Barrett, squeezing the trigger. The round fired silently, hitting the floor near Kane's feet and sending him sprawling back behind cover. Sparks flew as debris flew across the depot. Ridge and Ethan moved swiftly, taking precise shots to suppress Kane's operatives. One by one, Kane's men fell or retreated, disoriented and disorganized by the coordinated counterattack. But Kane remained, calculating, watching, waiting. He knew Holt's style, Holt's instincts. He had trained him, and yet Holt was prepared. Holt leapt from the catwalk, landing with precision on a lower platform, dragging the Barrett and the capsule with him. Ethan covered him, firing at approaching enemies. Ridge moved like a shadow, taking down anyone who threatened Holt's path. Kane's eyes glinted with fury and admiration, impressive but naive. He raised his weapon, firing with pinpoint accuracy. Holt rolled just in time, bullets tearing through the metal around him. Ethan's heart raced. The storm outside, the lightning, the chaos within the depot, all seemed to synchronize, a symphony of death and survival. Holt's leg throbbed violently, but he moved with relentless precision. Each step, each shot, each decision was critical. The capsule, the key to unimaginable power, rested in his hands. One miscalculation could be catastrophic. Kane lunged from cover, rushing Holt directly. Holt pivoted, swinging the Barrett with deadly accuracy, striking Kane's arm and forcing him back. Ethan and Ridge flanked, creating a pincer that Kane had not anticipated. For a brief moment, the storm and the firefight paused, the calm before the final strike. Holt, drenched and bleeding, weapon raised, faced Kane. Lightning illuminated both men, teacher and student, mentor and pupil, predator and hunted. You lose, Marcus, Holt said, voice firm, unwavering. It ends now. Kane's eyes flashed with fury. Never, you can't stop this. Holt fired once. The round hit Kane's weapon, disarming him, forcing the rogue colonel to stumble backward. Ridge and Ethan advanced, weapons raised. Kane's men had been neutralized or fled. The balance of power shifted. Kane looked around, realizing his plan had failed. Rage and disbelief mingled on his face. Holt advanced, Barrett leveled, hands steady despite pain. This ends tonight, Holt repeated. Kane fell to his knees, the storm howling around him, the depot in ruins and the capsule secured. Holt looked at Ethan and Ridge, eyes fierce but calm. We finish this together. Ethan exhaled, muscles trembling, adrenaline still coursing. We did it. Ridge shook his head slowly. We're not out of danger yet, but for now, yes, we've taken the first step. The storm outside began to subside. Rain softened to a drizzle. Lightning still flashed, but the chaos inside the depot had ended. Holt secured the Barrett, ensuring the capsule was hidden and protected. Ethan and Ridge tended to minor wounds, catching their breath, eyes still scanning for threats. For a moment, the three of them stood in silence, the enormity of what had transpired sinking in. They had faced trained operatives, a rogue mastermind, and the threat of unimaginable power in a single, nightmarish storm. They had survived. Holt finally spoke, voice hoarse but resolute. This rifle, this capsule, it's too dangerous to exist in the wrong hands, but for now it's safe, and we're still alive. Ethan nodded, still processing. I can't believe we made it. Ridge placed a hand on Holt's shoulder, eyes hard but respectful. You didn't just survive. You protected the world tonight, and that, Russo, is something very few people can say. Holt looked at them both, eyes fierce but tinged with exhaustion. We're not done, not yet, but we survived, and sometimes that's enough. Lightning flashed one final time, illuminating the depot in stark relief. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving puddles of water reflecting the first glimmers of dawn. The battlefield was quiet now, but the memory of the chaos, the fear, and the fight would remain forever. Ethan took a deep breath, watching the sun rise through the broken depot windows. He realized with a clarity that only comes after surviving the impossible that courage, trust, and relentless determination had carried them through. Holt, Ridge, and he had faced the storm, both literal and figurative, and survived. Holt turned the Barrett over in his hands, inspecting the scratches, the marks, the rifle that had carried them through so much. "It's just a weapon," he said softly, almost to himself. But tonight it was everything. And as the sun broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the rain-soaked tarmac, Ethan, Holt, and Ridge knew this. Some battles are fought with bullets, others with willpower. Tonight they had won both. The storm had passed, but the echoes of the night's fight would linger forever, a testament to courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable human spirit in the face of unimaginable danger.